this now. I'm live. I really apologize. This happens really. It's amazing. Every year. Every year. All right. No, that's not it. Share. And I don't know why we're not live. I guess we all live. All right. So anyway, thank you really again. 1,000 apologies for that happening. And it is what it is. So anyway, this is a pretty historic night. It's a big deal. And we've been talking about this for what, like about 3 years now, really two, since that tournament a couple of years ago. But for the teams involved in tonight's lottery, it could be a game changer, and not really just because of Connor Bedard, but also because of some of the plays thereafter. Again, I want to reiterate how strong of a class this is. This is really a near historic draft, not after the fact, and not because of what they did before this season. It's because of what they've all done this season. There are no red flags. There are no concerns. There's no sidebar story. Oh, this guy's dad is running this show. Oh, this guy. The only thing that we really been talking about in terms of like, let's say negativity, would be the Mitchkov contract situation, all the made up stuff about it doesn't play defense, and now he goes to the KHL and destroys it. So really, I've been working on my rankings. I've been spending the last like 3 weeks fine tuning my bottom. Like 250 to 300, and even those kids, I'm like, I can't keep them here. I got to move them up. I got to figure out what I'm going to do. So obviously, you have 225 kids getting drafted. All of them aren't going to turn out great. All right, you're going to have busts, but one thing that I recommend, if you're asking the question, how deep of a draft is it? Are the kids special? Is my team going to get someone good in the early first round, middle first round, late first? If your team doesn't have a first round pick, will I find them in the second round? Just go to the 2015 draft. Go to, let's say, hockeyreference.com or HockeyDB and look at the production. Look at that entire first round. You really don't have any busts in the first, let's say, like 18 or 17 picks. I forgot what Evgeny Svechnikov was, the poor Red Wings. I know it was bad luck. But as a Ranger fan, I could sympathize with Hugh Jessman in 2003. But similar situation, right? 2003, Sean Bell, Hugh Jessman, maybe a couple of others, where it's like, man, those guys, nothing really became of them. Whereas, in 2015, same thing. But, even look at a guy like Lawson Krause, who for years people said, oh, he's going to be a bust. You can't call a kid a bust who's a regular NHLer who averages about, 15 to 20 goals a season, or he's starting to average about 15, 20 goals a season. They love him in Arizona. Now, yeah, okay, he was drafted ahead of guys, I think, like Rantanen and Timo Meyer and, Shabbat and Werenski, I believe. But again, still, the key thing when you draft a first-round pick is you want them to stay with the organization and make a name for themselves and contribute, whether it be defensively, offensively, or both. They behave well. They have a good name, reputation within the community, etc. You don't want to have a kid who just basically they try and they give them every situation and it just doesn't work out. In retrospect, yeah, you're gonna redraft because that's what we do. And you're going to say that was terrible. But again, I want to just go and look at the 2015 draft and what those kids have become well into the middle of the second round. That's exactly what we're going to have here in 2000, I believe, in 2023. So, another thing to consider if your head's kind of spinning is that NHL draft coverage, more so, I think, than baseball draft coverage, football draft coverage, and basketball draft coverage, is completely oversaturated. So for every person that goes out and watches all the games and really, it's like a 12-month job. You got a whole bunch of people just making rankings out for the sake of ranking them, and they're all over the place. And there was one thing I saw where it's like a consolidated ranking, but it's like 19 rankings. Like, what good is that? Who cares? You know what I mean? Unless you're like, let's say in a fantasy league, right? And you really want to have an idea of the range. Because listen, the bottom line is very simple. You don't need consolidated rankings. You don't need any of that stuff. There's really only one list out there that is really all that matters, and that's the Central Scouting midterm rankings and the Central Scouting final rankings. Because although teams don't necessarily go by it and treat it as gospel, the teams definitely use it as a blueprint to a degree, and they're usually right. And, you know, I've been archiving and studying Central Scouting rankings for about 10 years now, and I've noticed that, hey, look, they're pretty close. They're pretty close in terms of what the NHL teams actually do. Bob McKenzie's ranking that comes out, he just released like a mini lottery one. That's like a little mock draft, okay? Bob doesn't watch the games. He polls a couple of scouts. I don't even know how honest the scouts are that he polls, because can you imagine if a scouting director was like, dude, what are you doing? Tell Bob McKenzie what a freaking draft board looks like. So I think there's a little bit of, you know, there's like, it's like a change up where like the scout will give Bob McKenzie what he thinks it should be, but that scout isn't, let's say, a scouting director that creates an actual team draft board. It's not, where it's like a collective job that takes a year or so to make. So in any event, that the biggest thing. This is a kind of a dog draft, but if you're drafting 2, 3, 7, 8, 15, 22, you're going to get a good draft pick. And, you know, some of you get really, really married to 1 or 2 kids, and I'm telling you, that's unhealthy. Don't do that. I used to do that, and it's very unhealthy. It makes no sense. It's just you're being stubborn, and you just want to be right. That's all it is. But this is the kind of draft where there's really no reason to overthink it. Now, will teams overthink it? Absolutely. The scouting combine is in a couple of weeks. And if we're going to use 2015 as an example, that was the year where Matthew Barzal was definitely a top 5 pick. He goes to, something happened where there was like an incident in like a hallway, and he twisted his knee and he shattered it, and he was done. And so people held that against him, and then he goes into the interview and people are grilling him about it. And I believe it might have been Boston, or someone was asking him about it, and he was cocky. He says, I think I'm the best in the passer, or something like that. And I don't like that attitude. And you realize how many guys have been drafted in the NHL that just hit home runs in the freaking interview process and they became nothing? A lot of them. I mean, if you go back and you watch the post-draft press conferences with the scouting director and with the G, like, oh, we love him. He's so mature. Comes from a great family. Who cares? You know, can the kid put the puck in the net? Is he gonna want to get better every year? Does he have tiny heart syndrome? Does he give up easily, etc.? All these factors weigh in, and I'm not saying it's an easy job that the scouts have, but again, analysis paralysis. You know, I made my list, my preseason 2023 list in whatever, in like July or June or May, and it hasn't barely even changed. So that's the key takeaway about this draft is don't worry. You're not supposed to worry. So let's go through the draft order real quick, and then I'll go through the lottery teams. I don't have a lot of time. I have about 20 minutes. Hold on. TV does this all the time. His auto shuts off. But the as far as the lottery goes, I believe the drawing's already been made. They're in Secaucus in New Jersey, and I don't know how funny it's going to be. Who's going to represent the Pittsburgh Penguins, the friggin' Red Sox owners, or that the guy? His name is Kevin, I think. I don't know, Kevin from Home Alone. But anyway, so the order is 1 through 16. Now, another quick little takeaway is that every lottery team should be making a pick except for the Ottawa Senators, because they traded a conditional pick, their first, which they're at 12 right now, to Arizona in the Chikrin deal. I'm just going to... In the Chikrin deal, I'm sorry, I keep like turning it that way, but everybody else has a shot to win the lottery. Now, again, 12 to 16 cannot win the first overall pick. They could only win up to, I believe it's 11 spots. So similar situation, let's say with New Jersey in 2011 with Adam Larson, how they vaulted up and got to 4. Funny thing about those Devils that year, remember how they went 29-2? And almost made the playoffs, but they didn't. Anyway, that was a weird year. And the next year they'll go to the Cup. But 1 through 11 can win the first overall pick, and those teams are Anaheim, Columbus, Chicago, San Jose, 5 Montreal, 6 Arizona, 7 Philly, 8 Washington, the Caps' first time in the lottery in a while. 9 Detroit, 10 St. Louis, and 11 Vancouver. Now, another thing is if you subscribe to my Substack, you'll see I've done like crazy detailed lottery primers for every team. Calgary, I didn't post it yet because I have to edit it, so you'll get it later. But it basically recaps the season, gives you all their lottery histories, everything. It's a lot of work. I mean, it took me a long time to do it, but I think the feedback I've been getting is really good and people love them. So if you subscribe to my Substack, go check it out if you're in fact, a fan of a lottery team. So let's see, we're counting down now. Now let's just go down the list real quick. So Anaheim, you're the favorite. Listen, he's going to be in Southern California. You already have Zegras, you already have McTavish, you have Mintyukov, you have Zellweger. There's really no, way to overthink it. What you do have to consider though is he going to play center or wing? Now, McTavish is a center and a wing. Zegras can play center and wing. You went out there, you got Ryan Strome. I believe Henrique is still there. So again, I'm not saying that you're going to try to, make Bedard feel uncomfortable and play, out of position, etc. But there's always a possibility that Bedard, because of his shooting, etc., will play wing. If Zegras right now, and I'm not saying Zegras has an ego, I'm not saying Strome has an ego, but and Bedard definitely doesn't have one. But if he does show up there, you have to figure something's got to shift around. Because remember, the Ducks went out and they bought players to try to compete this year, and it didn't work out. And they had the worst season in team history, I believe, and they got rid of the coach. So that's another little consideration too. Is the coach who's going to coach Connor Bedard if in fact he does go to the Anaheim Ducks. So it was a terrible season, a lot of bad news, but obviously if you get Bedard, it'll be a great day. Columbus, a similar situation to Anaheim, where you have a lot of established players already there. You have a lot of like a deep prospect pool. You've been drafting multiple first-round picks in a couple of years, over the last few years, and part of that was the Seth Jones trade. But again, I just saw Voronkov got signed, so he's coming in. He's a big deal. Marchenko, Kent Johnson, Cole Sillinger, and then the two defensemen, Jiricek and Matejchuk. So again, Columbus, you might have to tell a guy like Roslovic or somebody else, hey, you're going to shift over to wing or etc. I think Texier is coming back as well. So again, first two teams automatically, you don't know where he's going to go, but overall, you had those 2 seasons, it was worth the losing, and I think that, and again, I'm going to go into detail when I do these podcasts, etc. So I apologize if I'm trying to breeze through this. We have 16 minutes. Chicago, hey, listen. If you follow me on my Substack notes, I broke down Kyle Davidson's press conference, and he says we are not taking anybody off our draft board because of a contract situation. In other words, wink, wink, that could be related to Matvei Michkov. But obviously, if Bedard goes to Chicago, I know that they just moved Lucas Reichel there, but Bedard will be the number 1 center the top line. They haven't done anything in free agency yet. They're going to let Athanasiou and the other guy go. They have like $45 million in cap space. They got a lot of work to do. But Bedard in Chicago, it's probably out of the top 3. That would be the easiest answer. Like he just goes right in there. He's a top line center. There's no Zegras there to bother him. There's no nothing. San Jose, a little different situation because you have the cap issues. You have a veteran team. You keep regressing. Greer, the GM, says he's happy with the effort. I get it, but the ownership is probably impatient. You're paying Couture a lot of money. You're paying Vlasic a lot of money. You're paying Carlson a lot of money, and you're not getting the results on the ice. So I know that they have Eklund and they have Bordelot. The Sharks have done a good job. Started with Doug Wilson Jr. Now it's with the Morehouse guy there, where they're building up that farm system. It was dead. And now they have a lot of options there. So San Jose, similar situation maybe to Anaheim and Columbus, where you'll have to maybe shuffle things around. Hurdle. So they extended Hurdle. They have Couture for a couple more years. But Dawes not going to show up to be like, I'm the new number 1 center. Montreal. I think Montreal right now, they're acting like they'd rather have Dvorsky than Bedard. Like they are so locked into drafting Dvorsky at 5. It's almost like a similar situation with Shane Wright last year. All right, it's not on yet. It'll be like 14 minutes. Uh, I don't know, man. Slavkovsky, number one overall pick. He goes there, doesn't have a good first half, gets hurt, done for the season, and it's a miserable year in Montreal. Although they did play a little bit better, and there was a better compete level, and you're happy with your prospect pool. I get it. Bedard in Montreal would be out of control. It really would be. Coverage wise, the poor kid. And don't get mad at me, but I think secretly he's like, I don't want to go there. Next up, Arizona. Okay. That's not similar to Columbus, let's say, or San Jose, or even Chicago. That's more like an Anaheim situation because Arizona's got Cooley. And there's no way you can tell me that a guy like Logan Cooley is like, oh, yeah, kind of a dud. He's good. He could just take my job. Like, no, Cooley is a center. They obviously have Keller already there. Schmaltz is already there. Krause is already there. So they're kind of rebuilding. But if you look at Arizona's last couple of drafts, they've done really well. They've targeted the center ice position. Connor Geeky and Cooley went 1-2. So I don't know exactly where he would play. That training camp would be very interesting. If Cooley decides to, let's say, not return to Minnesota, that's going to be a crazy, crazy debate. Keep an eye on this, though, with Cooley in Arizona. If Arizona wins the draft lottery, you're probably going to see Cooley announce that he's going to go back to Minnesota. That's my prediction. But, the poor kid's going to be playing in a 5,000-seat arena. He'll think it's like Regina all over again. He'll like it probably. The vote for Arizona and the new arena is on the 16th, I believe, in 8 days. Huge deal. Huge deal. If they want to build a megaplex and the people in Tempe might say no, the voters at least. So I'm pro Arizona. They're like a pet team of mine now. I hope if he does go there, I'll be happy for them. And, in a way, the whole Austin Matthews things with Toronto, they're close to getting swept by flood in round 2. He might bolt, and you could have a Bedard Matthews scenario. And don't think it's that far-fetched because at one time, there was a Eric Lindros, Mark Messier scenario in New York that, of course, didn't happen. Flyers, I'm not going to talk about the Flyers too much because it's going to be on the OB podcast with Isaiah. I'm going to tweet out, I've already tweeted out the link. It's in a couple of days, so I'm not going to talk too much about the Flyers. Really, forget about even Bedard. Anybody that the Flyers get right now, you're adding that to Gauthier and all those wings, all those talented wings that Philly's been collecting over the last few drafts. So, the Schneider family, they all know the deal, right? Like, you bring a guy like Bedard in, automatically it changes everything. You have a franchise guy, you could market him like a franchise guy, and even though the team, you might worry about Torts and how he handles them, I think Torts will have pretty strict marching orders about not to really mess with him. And Washington at 8, Bedard transitioned to Ovechkin, or from Ovechkin. Caps have a lot of issues. They too have to find a coach because they parted ways with Laviolette. But 6% chance, you never know. Detroit, they're due. The Red Wings are due to win the lottery. They've never won one, and they've actually been knocked back a bunch of times. Prospect pool bursting out the seams. They're promoting a lot of kids now. If you saw Yzerman's press conference, he said, we're going to go with more kids. We're going to rush them. He didn't say rush them. I'm sorry I said that. Basically, it's what I've been saying for a couple of years now. Get the kids to freaking Grand Rapids at a minimum, and they're doing that. So Mazur's going to be there. Valinda's going to be there. Casper should be there. Edvinson, I think they want him to develop a little bit, a little more in the AHL. But what's the one thing that Wings fans have been begging for? Before the Casper pick was center iceman. And if you look at their prospect depth chart, it's loaded with wings and defensemen, not so much with center iceman. So you have Larkin there, but again, Bedard comes up, he's going to be your second line center. Obviously, it'll be a competition with Casper, but I think Bedard will probably overtake him. He should overtake him. Blues, man, horrible season. Bad news all the way around. The coach questioned the effort of pretty much the entire team. The GM Armstrong questioned the effort of the entire team. He said players are selfish. They care more about highlight clips than the actual team itself. A lot of those guys on that team won the cup with them. So lethal top 9. It just didn't get it done. Binnington was up and down. He kind of had a little bit of he had multiple meltdowns this year. So I think, if the Blues somehow end up getting kind of Bedard, I mean, what do you do? Like he's going to be literally like like the probably the third or fourth best forward automatically. But they have a bunch of guys on the team like Kyrou, Thomas, and Buchnevich. Those guys are 70, 80 point guys. You can't expect Bedard to come right in and surpass them. Although Crosby did hit the 100-point mark in his rookie year, and McDavid did it or would have done it if he didn't get hurt in his. So Bedard to St. Louis, he'd be surrounded by a ton of talent. And I don't think Blues fans would really like, he wouldn't have that kind of pressure as opposed to, let's say, if he was in Montreal. But, the Blues need good news. I know they just won a cup, so you don't feel bad for them too much. But this season was brutal. It was brutal. They had that losing streak to start. Then they made up for it with the winning streak, and then they had the losing streak, and everything was over. And last but not least, speaking of messed up, is the Vancouver Canucks. Listen, the Canucks, they have an owner there that nobody likes. They had a GM there that nobody liked. They have now a GM who's a team president who's the de facto GM, and he does not want to rebuild. He traded away a freaking mid-first round pick in this draft for Hronek, who Red Wings fans got tired of last year, and then all of a sudden he bounces back. They said we wanted to address a hole on the right side of the defense. It was stupid, so dumb. But the Canucks, like I said, they have that established core. Obviously, Bedard being from Vancouver would, just set everything off. All that said, look at the talent he'd be surrounded by. You'd have a power play with Quinn Hughes, Elias Pettersson, JT Miller, maybe Brock Besser, and Connor Bedard. So anywhere Bedard goes is going to be bananas. It's going to be, like I said, a historic day for that franchise. But still, you got to think he's going to go to one of the top 3 teams. So we got about 10 minutes now. So let me just go down some of the players beyond Bedard that you should be looking at that I think are going to be in the lottery. So my number 2 is Matvei Michkov. Everybody else has Fantilli. I'm not going to budge on Michkov. A new wrinkle, I guess, an unfortunate wrinkle, is that his father was murdered in Russia not too long ago. Michkov right now is playing in a tournament. It might have finished up. It's like a tournament in Turkey. Playing for the U25 Russian team. And so Michkov right now, he hasn't played since that dominant stretch in the KHL. He hasn't played in any international tournaments that could be scouted. I guess a bunch of scouts are going over there to Turkey to see him play. But he's my number 2. There's nothing wrong if you have Fantilli ahead of him, because Fantilli's fantastic. I know last year, a couple years ago, I got mad at that, and I see it why. I can't, if he is going to be like the next Ovechkin, I can't deny that. I have to just keep him there. So I have Bedard 1, Michkov 2, Fantilli 3. All 3 of those players have really, like, if you look at their resumes, like potential Hall of Fame careers ahead of them. So you think about that, and then you have Leo Carlsson's part of that group as well, and he's playing right now. I believe he's going to play for Sweden at the Men's World Championships. We have 5 minutes, so I'm still waiting for the lottery to kick off. Now, Will Smith is interesting. I have him ranked 6th, behind Zach Benson at 5. Benson's having a great postseason after coming back from his shoulder surgery. Smith had the dominant season, really, and dominant U18 World Championship. So people right now are kind of torn, not just with Smith, but also, is Smith a top 3? Now, remember, McKenzie's list came out. It's a scout poll, and they have Smith as the 3rd best prospect in the draft. That's freaking recency bias, okay? That's recency bias because they watched the U18 Worlds, and Smith, I think he came within 1 point of the record. So Will Smith, you have the skating, the playmaking, the vision, etc. He didn't have a good gold medal game. He was forcing things a little bit, but still nothing really to be upset about. Dvorsky, I love. I've talked about him before. You can hear the podcast and see the profile I made on him. He sets you up. He's a playmaker. He's a shooter. He can run the power play. He's a defensive specialist, and he's a great guy on faceoffs. So, if you want to say that Bedard and Fantilli are locks at 1 and 2, I'd buy that. But after that, it really is going to be wide open now. And I think people did that on purpose because it would be too boring if we had the same rankings. I ain't changing my rankings all that much. I think I swapped Smith with somebody, but my 1 through 6 goes Bedard, Mitch Core, Fantilli, Carlson, Benson at 5, and Smith at 6. Dvorsky 7. And then I have Colby Barlow, the sniping wing, at 8. Chalet, speaking of sniping wing, I got him at 9, the Czech kid. And then Braden Yeager, who's had a pretty good postseason. Really good playmaker. Last year he was the shooter. This year he's the playmaker. So really good stuff from him. And then other forwards you want to think about is Callum Ritchie, a big kid out of Oshawa. He was one of the best players on that team. That team wasn't that good. And then you have Nate Danielson, a big-bodied center and playmaker playing Brandon in the WHL. So those are my top forwards. And, of course, I guess the last guy I'll talk about is Ryan Leonard because he just had this great tournament. And he's a real physical guy. I mean, he's like a fast Keith Kachuk. He's just a fantastic. So he's a right wing, right shot. So I think Central Scouting pushed him into the top 4 or 5 on the North American rankings. Well, what about defensemen? What if your team really needs defensemen and you're having issues and your pool is weak and you want to kind of get the BPA and the need addressed? Listen, there's no BPA defenseman in the top 10. There's no way. If a team says that we had on our draft board, we had this defenseman as our best player available, and they draft him at, let's say, 7, 8, or 9, they're lying because they made a list for need and they put the defenseman high. Now you could say, well, look at Detroit and Moritz Seider in 2019, but look who they also passed up as well. So you can make it is Moritz Seider the guaranteed no shit best player in the draft, let's say top 3 or 4. No, you got to rank him against Zegras. Look at Dylan Cousins, what he's doing in Buffalo, among several other players. Boldy is another one. So if you want a defenseman, fine, but there's really only like 3 or 4. And that's Sandy Polika, Gulyayev, the Russian, and Reinbacher, who everybody loves. Now they're trying to push this poor Tom Willander kid up because he can skate. Listen, you got to be careful with that, okay? I watched Willander play. He's a good defenseman. He's not like a brilliant, let's say, breakout option in terms of his decision making, but he could be physical. He's a beautiful skater, but you got to be careful with that because remember, Kallio Delius was a similar player, and he fell all the way down to the second round because it's Broberg. Philip Broberg's another one, and I'm not just saying that because they're Swedish. I'm just saying that because of the fact that. People fall in love with skating. They fall in love with skating. Like, dude, you don't have to be a great skater. Cale McCaw's a beautiful skater. He was horrible in the playoffs this year. Adam Fox isn't a great skater, and he had a great playoff last year, and this year he wasn't so great. So, again, skating I think is a little overrated. You definitely have to have quick feet. All right, I'm not going to deny that. But, in terms of, the grace and the power and, in my opinion, you can't rank Willander ahead of Sandin Polika. Sandin Polika is way more advanced. He's played tougher minutes. He's played against tougher men. If you watch him defensively, too, for an offensive defenseman, he's really not that big. He's actually pretty good, and I think there's room for growth there. So I'm still waiting on the... There we go. There we go. All right, I think we started. So again, I can't show you what's going on, but I'm going to give you my reaction. And then I'll give you my reaction after each pick. If there's no change, you pretty much know how I feel because I just went through it. And then we'll do a little bit of a mock draft afterwards. I don't know if I have an updated draft order, but I have a pretty a general idea. So anyway, again, back to what I was saying though about the importance of this draft is that we're definitely in the analysis paralysis phase where people are trying to find red flags, they're trying to find reasons to dock kids and trying to find excuses, or they're married to a ranking and they don't want to move. That it's again, I'm a firm believer that it really doesn't matter. That this is the kind of draft where you could just create a draft board by throwing a dart at a bunch of names, as long as they're rated somewhere in a top 50, and I think you'll find the 80% solution. I really do. I think 80% out of those 50 will not only become NHL players, but they'll become good to average NHL players at a minimum, and then you have all those guys with the ultra high ceiling. So, all right, here we go. They always have to make it so dramatic.
He skates like
So I know another thing I've said about Bedard is I've said that there's a chance he could be like Wayne Gretzky. I ain't lying, man. I'm not lying. And now the the one thing about Gretzky when he entered the league was there was really nobody like him. That you had Guy Lafleur's and you had, Marcel Dion's and you had, you Brian Trottiers. Like everybody was a little bit different, but the what Bedard can do with the puck, what he can do, just in traffic. Everyone talks about the shot. Everybody talks about his IQ, whatever. One thing that Bedard does that because remember, Bedard's a good skater. He's not McDavid. McDavid will attack traffic with speed, and he forces defensemen and opponents to back in. Bedard will watch traffic, I guess, develop. He'll watch coverage, the opposing coverage develop. And what do? Like the coach probably tells his guys, hey, don't let Bedard get into the zone, because once he does, it's lights out. And Bedard knows this, and so he attacks the grouping. He attacks the mass. And it's like it's not like the defensemen and the forwards do anything wrong. He just attacks it and he gets through it. I've never seen it. Mario Lemieux a little bit, but he had the reach advantage, right? Mario Lemieux had the long reach in the hands. And that famous goal that he scored in the 91 Cup Finals, a similar situation to that. But imagine 3 or 4 guys, and that's what Bedard does. So, I'm not going to make a prediction about what he's going to produce in his rookie year, because I said Lafreniere, was going to be like a 20-50 guy, and he still can't get past 35 points. But I firmly do believe that Connor Bedard, he's basically the hype that you will see around Bedard, especially if he goes to a fairly decent, I guess, mid-level market, right? With all due respect to Columbus and them, are fine, but if he goes to a Chicago, or he goes to a Montreal, or he goes to a Philly, or if he goes to a Detroit, forget about it. It's going to be like Crosby back in 05. The league had no choice to promote Crosby in 05 because they were poor. They just had a full season canceled with the strike, so they had to promote him as the next one. And although Crosby will never be Wayne Gretzky, he never was even close to touching Wayne Gretzky. You can definitely, Crosby's one of the top, let's say, 10 players of all time, easily. And when all is said and done, he might be even in top 5. And you could maybe even add, Crosby to a list that includes, what's the big 4? In my opinion, there's only a big 4: Gretzky, Lemieux, Howe, and Orr. But I wouldn't be upset if you want to put, Sidney Crosby in that group, and then of course McDavid will eventually jump him when his career is all said and done. McDavid might be the greatest scorer of all time when everything is said and done, but he has to win this in the postseason. So there's no overhyping of Bedard. There's no he really is that kind of a player where he will, again, I saw the kid when he was freaking 15 years old. I didn't want to leave. Remember how angry I was at that stupid tournament? I didn't want to leave because of Bedard. So, all right, so they're doing it by Zoom? That's no fun. I thought they're doing the reveal, but I thought the reveal was supposed to be in the studio. Anyway. So what we're going to do, another thing too I want to talk about is what to expect out of me as we're 2 months away from the draft pretty much. It's here in Nashville. If you go to my Substack, it's going to be daily stuff. So I'm going to do a mock draft for tomorrow. It's going to be free. A full 32 pick mock draft for the first round. And, I've already, on all my lottery primers, I've already wrote the Bedard effect, etc. So if you go there and check that out, I mean, you have to subscribe. It's $5 a month or whatever. But you get to see my thoughts. And really, for every single team that was eligible to get Bedard, I did a Bedard effect. Actually, I think one of them or 2 teams I didn't do. I think I didn't do it for Washington. I just wanted to, dive into their draft tendencies, and the Caps. It's a big deal with the not making the playoffs. So, it's unfortunate that right after Bedard gets drafted in June, the NHL is going to go right into free agency, and we're going to lose that oomph. But if you have a chance go on YouTube and watch his videos, watch his interviews. He's a really good kid. Crosby. Remember when Crosby came into the league, how he made a lot of enemies and he was complaining to the right. He was diving. Bedard is abrasive. He has bite. He stands up for his teammates. I won't say he'll do dirty shit, but he will not hesitate to, let's say, get involved in a scrum. And but he's not like a that big of a complainer. So I think like his reputation around the league will be like maybe more like McDavid, kind of a quiet personality where he lets his play do the talking, and he'll have endorsements, etc. But it's an exciting time. It really is, and I'm glad it's gonna end in June because like we've been talking about the same names the whole time, and sometimes it's going to draft you to have a little bit of variance. So anyway, we're still waiting on it. The draft report, if you subscribe to my Substack, the draft report comes complimentary with it. So the draft report is going to be released, I don't know, in like June sometime. You're going to have all the scouting reports, etc., the team reports. No real change from last year's report, except I'm adding some more like the more detailed breakdown of the prospect, depth chart, etc. So we're at 707, by the way, still waiting on it. This is what they do. They have to build it up. So dumb movie number one is some weird kid, and they're all fighting like a medieval dragon science thing. I don't even know what it is, but here we go. All right. Make it louder.
NHL draft lottery in New Jersey.
All right. So we're gonna go from bottom up. They're gonna do the 16th pick first, and then go all the way up to 1. And don't forget, if the Ottawa Senators win the lottery, then they keep the pick, and Arizona gets their unprotected first-round pick next year. A lot of suspense. All right, I'm gonna mute this because I'm sorry, it's just lame. But and another thing too, when you guys get a chance, like give me feedback, what you think about the Substack thing. I know a lot of you told me you're upset that I charge money for it now and it's not free like the old blog used to be. I told you I have my reasons. I got to keep it private, but here we go. So it's 10 after is when they're probably going to announce it. Right now it's 8 after.
Determining the order of selection for the first 16 picks in the NHL draft. Will the Anaheim Ducks remain the first pick, or will another team claim the top spot and the right to draft Connor Bedard?
I like Kevin Weeks.
Just as anxious as we are, fans.
All right, so they have draft parties going on. Anaheim, Chicago, Columbus. I mean, everyone should be at a lottery party.
In the draft. We'll soon know the results. With his stellar play in the Western Hockey League, and of course at the World Junior Championship.
I hate when they do this. I really do. I just want. I don't know how you guys feel, but you know what? I don't have the chat open. Yeah, thank you. All right, so MVD Canucks fan here. We're fucked. I don't know if let's say fuck per se. The owner sucks. You got to get rid of the owner. And well, that doesn't really happen. The biggest concern for me is that Rutherford is running the team, and that he doesn't rebuild. He's been a GM for like 20-something years. He's only made the playoffs. Well, it is like 18 years, I think, with Carolina, that franchise. He only made the playoffs like 5 times. Or something crazy like that. I remember I tweeted it out. So I don't like what's going on in Vancouver at all. Pedersen had a great year. Miller's Miller. Hughes is Hughes. They played better on the Tocchet, but they played better on the Boudreau, and then they had the bad start. So, a lot of toxic stuff going on there. But Substack was a good move. I think so. I like it. It really has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with I want my work just only to be seen by certain people. That's it. I don't want it to be all out there and everyone's freaking, All right, so they're interviewing Bedard right now.
that tension and all that pressure. So he's someone that
And also my Substack too. If you subscribe, I think if you're a free subscriber, you have access to all my podcasts. Like 250 podcasts are archived there. But from now on, they're going to be for pay only. So.
Something that I take a lot of pride in, and I love to.
See, I'm pissed. I could have went into more detail on the teams. As far as the 2024 draft, it looks like right now you have it's a 3-horse race. It looks like between Demidov, the Russian kid, Cole Eiserman, the American, and then Max Celebrini, the who's also, I believe, from the Vancouver area as well. So that those are going to be your 3. 2 of those guys are wings, Eiserman and Demidov, and then Celebrini is like one of the fastest skaters I've ever seen, and he's a center. So.
Lottery. And as mentioned, Anaheim has the best odds to win at 18.5%.
I don't know what to tell you, so I'm going to make a prediction. You ready? I'm going to make a prediction. My prediction is he's going to go to Columbus. So I say Columbus 1, Anaheim 2, and Chicago 3. And it's going to go Bedard, Fantilli, Mitchell. That's my prediction. There you go. You have it. Let the record state. I think Columbus as a franchise, they're on the right path. Like they had that great period, really built up the excitement. It's not just an Ohio State town anymore. But that, and I'm not being a conspiracy theorist. Every dog has its day, and I think that Columbus, they've been kind of shortchanged a couple of times. I think they had a trade up for Rick Nash. All right, here we go.
Good evening.
Billy D.
National Hockey League. I'd like to welcome our 16 teams.
I miss Gary though. I wish Gary was giving some type of introduction speech or something.
As we reveal the results of tonight's draft lottery.
With
that, let's get it started.
Oh, here we go.
The number 16
16
overall selection in the 2023 NHL draft belongs to
Calgary. 16.
Calgary did not have a first-round pick last year, but they will be picking 16.
No GM. No GM and no head coach for Calgary. 15.
The number 15
Supposed to be
overall selection
Smashville.
in the 2023 NHL draft belongs to the
Smashville at 15. All right, Nashville, one of the best prospect pools in the game. Outstanding work by Poyle at the trade deadline, getting they have 13 picks in the draft this year. 14. It should be Pittsburgh. We'll see.
NHL draft belongs to
Pittsburgh Penguins at 15. This is the highest pick they've had, I believe, since Pouliot in, I believe, 2012.
And they have a top 15 pick for the first time in a little over a decade.
Yeah, Kevin Weeks read my stuff.
the number 13.
13 should be Buffalo.
NHL draft belongs to
Sabres. All right, Sabres. This is Sabres are gonna friggin' crush the league in 2 years. They're loaded, but they got to find out what's going on with Ryan Johnson. Because that defense is weak. The Sabres are going to be a team that'll pick a defenseman, guarantee it.
the number 12.
All right, here we go, Ottawa.
In the 2023
If this hits Ottawa, all right, so that pick is Ottawa, but it goes over to Arizona.
Since this pick isn't a top 5 pick, the selection transfers to Arizona.
So Arizona, you now have 2 top 12 picks. Not bad.
In franchise history.
All right, so now number 11, Vancouver Reese.
The number 11 overall selection
Hold on.
in the 2023 NHL draft belongs to
Yeah, Vancouver, you didn't get it. All right, still. Don't trade the pick for frickin', Zadorov.
This is the last time that the Canucks had selected 11th overall, which was way back in 1982.
Who they drafted? 82, 11th overall. I should know
number
that.
10 overall
All right, here we go.
selection in
10,
the
St. Louis.
2023 NHL draft belongs to the St. Louis Blues.
St. Louis at 10. This is exciting.
3 first-round picks for general manager Doug Armstrong.
Yeah.
For the first time
Armstrong is pissed. He's mad about the team. You see his face? All right, number 9,
Overall selection
Detroit.
in the 2023
Will the
NHL
sun shine on your ass? Yeah, I know. All right, Detroit. Another
time they had the 9th overall
Another number 9 pick.
was back in
So Detroit at number 9.
they took forward
We're going to number 8, Capitals. Conspiracy.
The number 8 overall overall selection in the 2023
Ovechkin. Well, he's not retired because he's got the Capitals. All right.
Their 8-season playoff run came to an end with the 8th overall pick.
All right, Flyers at 7. Another conspiracy. League was very friendly with them with the Lindros situation.
The number 7 overall selection in the
I'm nervous. I'm nervous.
NHL draft
I'm nervous.
belongs to
Philly. All right.
the Flyers.
All right. You'll get a guy like Dvorsky or something. All
Last year, the Flyers will be selecting 7th.
right, Arizona.
5th time in franchise history.
The number 6 overall selection in the 2023
Dude.
NHL draft belongs to
Arizona at 6. All right, so Arizona, you're drafting 6 and 12.
Headlined by American Logan Cooley at 3 overall.
All right, so now we're up to number 5.
6th overall.
Montreal.
First time since taking Oliver Ekman-Larsson in 09.
Watch Montreal win and they draft Dvorsky first
Number
overall.
5 overall selection.
They
in the
love Dvorsky, I don't get
2023 NHL draft belongs to
Canadians at 5. All right.
Last year, the Canadiens made a historic
All right, so now we're up to San Jose. San Jose 4, Chicago 3, Columbus 2, Anaheim 1. That's all that's left. They'll go to commercial after the if they announce this and it's not a lottery, I think they'll go to commercial.
the number 4 overall selection in the 2023 NHL draft belongs to
San Jose.
Sharks.
This will be Mike Greer's
All right.
second draft as a Sharks GM.
You know what?
Never selected
This is a good thing. There's no conspiracy, nothing, okay? 1, 2, and 3. You only separated, Chicago 11.5%, Columbus 13.5, and Anaheim at 18.5. So I'm glad. I think everybody else should be glad. Now you could just settle in. You're not going to get Bedard. Just settle in, and you can focus on your needs. Yeah, they're going to go to commercial. All right, so there's really not much to really report with that. That there's really no surprise. I guess the big news is that Arizona, Ottawa didn't win it, and Arizona gets the pick. And I don't really have a problem with that, by the way. The fact that Ottawa traded that pick. Remember that Ottawa, the last 3 first-round picks that they've had, if you count this one, they drafted Boucher way off the board, and he's had injury issues. They traded last year's pick to Chicago in the DeBrincat deal, and now they trade this one for Chikrin. That's actually not bad if you think about what they already had established with Stutzler and with Sanderson and with Kachuk and with Hate the Drake and Pinto and Norris. You're loaded with young guys. The only issue I have with Ottawa, though, is that the young defensemen weren't really working out outside of Shabbat and the Sanderson kid. Bernard Docker didn't work out, and Lassie Thompson didn't work out. So I think making that move now, you have either one super pairing or 2 really good pairings with potential franchise guys or cornerstone franchise guys on each one. And if someone says, "Hey, it's going to cost you a number 12 pick plus a couple other picks," I don't have a problem with Ottawa doing that. So if you're a Sens fan, you should have a little bit of relief now because it's over. You don't have to worry about next year's pick being unprotected. If you suck, it goes automatic. You don't have to worry about that. Okay, you give away the pick. You got Chikrin if he's healthy for a full season. And then when I watched Dorian's presser, I like the fact that Dorian was like, "No, I'm happy with what we did. We improved." And you look at some of the people were so mad at the Senators for underachieving, but remember where they came from. So Senators, Buffalo, Detroit, New Jersey, those 4 teams, it's just a matter of time. It's just New Jersey's already arrived, but as far as the other 3 joining them, they all follow the same blueprint. The only difference is that Detroit never had one of the high picks, whereas and Columbus and Montreal, they're like, "Hey, what about us? What about Philly? You started yours a little bit late, right?" Ottawa started theirs, and I believe really, if you think about it, they started in 2016 when they had a top, they traded into, I think, the top 11 to draft Logan Brown. With Devils, we all know their situation. We all know Detroit's situation, where it's been, in Buffalo, they haven't made the playoffs since 2011, but they had a 90-point season this year. And they were 3rd in goals. They just didn't have any goaltending. So the balance of power in the East is shifting. Boston's loss to Florida may very well be the end of an era. May very well be. Yeah, I don't think that they want it to end that way. But if you're a Bruins fan, you're worried. You're worried about what you have going on in Providence, what you've been doing at the draft, what you've been doing with your picks. Although I think they've done pretty well the last couple of years. I love the Loke Mellis kid, by the way. But and I saw Poitras just got signed. He had a great year. I didn't like that pick, but he had a great year. So those four teams that I mentioned, those rebuilders, they're not going to be rebuilding for long. You could say, in a way, Buffalo's already done. But next year, Ottawa and I think Detroit take the next step. And who's going to suffer? Islanders, Pittsburgh, Washington, maybe Boston. All right. Anaheim, Columbus, Chicago. 1, 2, 3. Here we go.
The number three
pick
in the 2023
is Chicago. Let's see.
Belongs to the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Columbus. So we have a change. I'm sorry, guys.
John Davidson and Yarmo.
I'm sorry, guys.
Out in the Buckeye State in Columbus, Ohio.
All right, so conspiracy theory. Here it is.
Parties are going nuts so far. You can see on
You
the
said
right.
Chicago needed a franchise player, and we'll
on
see.
the left, that is the
Kyle Davidson. Kyle Davidson doesn't fuck around. I like him.
Anaheim Ducks general manager Pat Verbeek, and on the left, general manager
Pat Verbeek. Anaheim's got to find a coach. A lot of teams have to find. I'm surprised that
Bill Daly.
All right, here we go. Where's Connor Bedard going to go?
Selection in the 2023 NHL draft belongs to the
Chicago Blackhawks.
Number 2.
And he shows Anaheim and he flips it the wrong way. Wow.
Look, in Chicagoland fans,
You can't say it's that much of a conspiracy because they were really bad, and that win against Pittsburgh, you're like, what the frick are you doing?
About this great news for their franchise and of
But-
course their amazing fan.
All right, I don't need to hear them. Whoa. Okay, so a little surprised. I don't know why I'm surprised. I shouldn't be surprised, but goes back to what I said. And if you guys want, I'm gonna speak about Bedard to Chicago for a little bit, maybe like 10 minutes, and then I'll get into my mock draft if that's what you guys are waiting for. So the low point, we all know what the low point was. That what's going on in that franchise right now is pretty sad. And I'm not saying it's anybody's like fault who's there right now. I don't want to disparage the players or whatever. But what happened, what Bowman did, what Bowman tried to do to fix it, the cover up, whether or not you think that that Beach isn't completely innocent in all this, by the way, he's not. But the cover up was just horrible. And that reputation's in the tank coming off of 3 cups in 6 years or 5 years or whatever it was. So attendance was hurting. Davidson said openly, he's like, this is going to be a deliberate rebuild. He called last season year 1. Think about that. If you're a Hawks fan, think about that. He called last season year 1 of the rebuild. The Hawks have been drafting high since Boquist in 2018. They had Doc third in 2019. So this is not new. Like this is like losing and being out of the playoffs and take away that 2020 little miracle in the bubble where they beat Edmonton. They have not been a playoff team. They've been bad. They've been embarrassing. They've been this year with a different coach. They play tougher. Okay, I'll acknowledge that. But it was a bare bones lineup. And another thing too is they really didn't draft all that great. On the Bowman and what was the guy's name? Was it Mark Kelly? So I agree. Yeah, Jersey just in the lottery. You're always winning the lottery. The Devils, you got your fun. So I think that if you're a Blackhawks fan right now, obviously this is a big deal. I don't think the pressure is going to be on him like it would have been in, let's say, Montreal or Philly. But there will be pressure on him. And, this is a situation where you might have a Connor McDavid or a Sidney Crosby in Chicago. Well, Pat Kane was a great player. Stan Mikita, Bobby Hull, great players, but you might have something more special than that. So I don't know if Davidson owes it to Bedard to build around him. He's got like $40 million in cap space. Getting this pick right now, in addition to all the other picks he has, automatically, should just make that prospect pool set. And then he can maybe try to go about and start making some moves. I don't think he has enough capital just yet, though. Maybe on defense he does, but in terms of building a complete, let's say, like 3-team lineup, where you have your A team, your B team, and your C team. He's not even at the C team level yet. He's got a lot of work to do. He's got to fix those forwards. So maybe in a couple more drafts. So anticipate, I think if he felt like he was going to be losing this year anyway, the team was going to be bad. So I think that if you're a Hawks fan, similar situation to Crosby with Pittsburgh in 2005-06, where he joins the team, right? So what did Pittsburgh do? They went out and they got Eddie Olchuk. Eddie Olchuk, I'm sorry, was the coach. They went out, they got like Bill Guerin. John LeClaire was on that team. Mario Lemieux was on that team. And they were terrible. They stunk. But again, it was just more like you want to not really insulate Connor Bedard. Why are these videos grainy? What year is this? It's like Saddam's hanging video. They're showing Chicago high-fiving. But anyway, I think Davidson definitely owes it to Bedard, but you don't want to sign guys who are jerks, freaking alcoholics, mean to him. So it's going to be a complicated process, but I think, this is my opinion, that yes, Kyle Davidson owes it to the city of Chicago and ownership to build a winner. But dude, you just got Connor Bedard. They're going to go to the games just to see the Bedard. They don't care what the record is. So if that's the case, you kind of owe it to Bedard and the rest of the team to kind of build around him with capable, veterans with like name recognition. So anyway, let's, I'm getting like all these texts right now. Anyway, let's do a quick, mock draft. We'll do a lottery mock draft actually, because we're running out of time. So, I think what I'll do is I'll do a free podcast for the teams who aren't involved in the lottery, and I'll give you my thoughts on them and kind of like a little like a draft preview to the draft preview. Because listen, if your team got eliminated from the playoffs but you're not in the lottery, you're still pissed, you're mad, you're angry, you're sad. So I know that a lot of you guys telling me that, hey Steve, please tell me good news. So I'll do that later this week. Just I've been working like a freaking sick animal with these what are they called, the previews, the primers. All right, so the Calgary Flames right now, they have a really good farm system. It's underrated. They got talented players like Peltier and Coronado, and the Stromgren kid is pretty good. The lineup, they're saying we're staying. Get us a new coach. So I don't think they need a kid to be rushed right away, but definitely, they don't necessarily need defensemen. But then again, you are picking at 16. You got plenty of firepower up front. If you want to swing for the fences, one thing I'll buy is that by the time he gets to Stockton or the Calgary now, the Wranglers, that he'll be the best player there is always Coronado and Peltier, and some of the other guys move up. So as far as your top prospects go, let me see. So this will be in the draft report. So I guess I'm giving you some free chicken. Hold on, let me just grab Calgary. What happened to Calgary? I guess I don't have Calgary. Oh, here we go, Calgary. Okay, so Peltier, Coronado, Dustin Wolf, the fantastic goalie, Canizari, another great year in the AHL, and Jeremy Poirier, right? So Poirier is like a playmaking defenseman, also had a strong year for Calgary in the AHL. So trend-wise, the Flames like to usually draft out of 3 leagues, okay? They draft out of the USHL, the WHL, and the Quebec League. So if they like to draft from their own backyard and they're drafting 16, I have them taking Andrew Crystal. Now, again, you might say, now he's a left wing out of the Kelowna program, a divisive prospect to a degree because he put up all these great points. He was averaging 2 points a game. Kelowna wasn't very deep. Then he goes to the U18s and he's playing on a depth line. You're like, wait a minute, whoa, you got one of the top scorers in the WHL and you got Crystal playing, on the third, fourth line. What's going on here? He also had, I think he had a hand injury around the mid-season point, around like January timeframe. But this kid's got hands. He could shoot. He's got an electrifying thing about him. And now that Sutter's not there anymore, maybe they bring in a coach who, they bring in a coach who likes to attack and likes to play with pace, etc. So I think Crystal is a good fit for you guys. If you go defense, it's going to be, Ryan Baca will be gone. Sandy Palika will be gone. What would work for Calgary at this spot if it was a defense heavy draft would be like a physical two-way defenseman, right? Like a Leon Bixel or someone of that ilk, right? The guy that Dallas took last year. But you have a second round pick. So, and you're picking in the middle of the second round. So you could always adjust the defensive position or the defense position. But I definitely go high end forward with your first pick. All right, so Nashville. Nashville's in a situation where they're really not in a bad spot, state of the franchise wise, in terms of their record. Remember, Nashville underachieved. Then Poyle announced he's leaving after 20-something years. Then they sell off at the deadline. They call up all those kids from Milwaukee, and they all do great, and they almost make the playoffs. And Saros had a great year, actually. Saros played like 65 games. The other thing to consider about the Preds is that they have I thought this was an alphabetical one, I'm sorry. The Preds have a premier farm system, and it's going to become even deeper and stronger after this draft. So they have, I kind of like briefed on it touchly, but all the trades that Poyle made before he's out the door, fantastic work. They're going to have 5 picks combined between in rounds 1 and 2. So they have 2 first rounders, one belonging to Edmonton. That might be in the 30s. But they also have their own. And then the second round, they have Pittsburgh's second round. That's a high second round pick because Pittsburgh didn't make the playoffs. And they have 3 third round picks and 3 fourth round picks. So what that means is with those 2 seconds or those 2 thirds, Nashville might even be able to trade up back into the first for a third first round pick. But this is technically their first pick of the draft. They could do whatever they want. They can, go skill. They could go need. They could go, intangibles, whatever. But I think that they've been going, if you look at their drafts recently, they've been going like a lot of skill forwards. A lot of their best prospects are skill forwards. I think that one of those defensemen is going to be available. And here's my prediction. I think they go Gulyayev, the Russian kid. So Mikhail Gulyayev will be the Preds' first pick in the draft. Now, he might, because he's Russian and he's got the KHL contract, he might slip down and be available with the Edmonton pick. So again, it's a little bit of the strategy on the part of I guess Barry Trotz, really, but I believe Poyle is running this draft, and then he's gone for free agency. So he's doing the draft with Kelty, and then he's going to let Trotz take over free agency. So, 16 Calgary. Let me write these down so I remember. So 16 Calgary, I have Kristal, and then Gulyayev, the Russian defenseman out of Omsky Yastrzębie. He had a very strong postseason. Go watch his series against it was Tolpar, I think it was. He had one series where he was fantastic. And he's not very big, but he's kind of like a Sandy Palika with his footwork. He's like an Adam Fox, cannon of a shot, very good defensively as well. All right, Pittsburgh Penguins. You have to hit a home run on this pick. You have to. You can't take any chances or do anything cute or whatever. So I think that Nate Danielson is going to be the pick here. And the reason why is there's always been a WHL connection with the Penguins. I know that Hextall is gone. Burke is gone. They have no GM. They have no team president. They have no AGM. And as of right now, they're being run by, the Fenway Sports Group that owns Liverpool and the Red Sox and the Patriots. But Nate Danielson is everything that any team would want in a center, okay? Because he can skate. He's got size. He's physical. I would say he's better than Connor Geekie. And Connor Geekie went 11th overall last year. So I wouldn't be shocked if Danielson has, let's say, top, really like, top line upside. Forget about that. Like top scoring upside in the league, as in like top 10. Vision is phenomenal. And, if you look at the Penguins prospect pool too, who do you have at center ice? The poor Poulan kid had to take a time off because he was stressed out. I think he was stressed out. I don't want to, speak down to his situation, and it's a big deal. But that's reality is that the Penguins don't have a lot of forward prospects, and their best prospect right now is the kid Pickering, the defenseman. So yeah, they have Zam Plant. Yes, they have Tristan Brose, but they're going to be in college for like a couple more years, 3 more years. So Danielson, with his size, his playmaking, etc., I think he's going to be NHL ready sooner than later. And if he's available down there, you gotta steal him. All right. So Buffalo Sabres, house money. I would say trade the pick. There's going to be a team willing to get back in there. They made really good moves getting Greenway, who's got a couple of years left on his deal. The Sabres were getting beat up a lot. They're a finesse team, and teams were going, because they were young teams were going after them, and the GM there, Adams, went out and got Greenway for kind of a cheap price. So I think that Chalet is the pick over here. Now, I'm not just saying that because you have Kulik and Kulik-Saleh. That makes a ton of sense, but the Sabres are a very analytics-driven team when it comes to the draft, and that Jerry Fortin, he'll always give a shout-out to the analytics staff and say, hey, fantastic job, blah, blah, blah. We got with them. We spoke about this prospect. Analytics came in. Like, that's, if you watch his last 3 or 4 post-draft conferences, at least since Adams has been around, he'll mention the analytics community. So Chalet is a possession player, okay? If there's analytic data available for the Czech Extraliga, but Brno was a fairly competitive team, and he was on like a 3rd or 4th line, really more 3rd line than 4th line. But the production is same as Nachas, almost identical, same role, except Nachas did not play center when he was playing with Brno. And remember, Carolina drafted Nachas, and they're also heavy on the analytics when it comes to drafting as well. So I just think it works out. And I mean, for all the great players that the Sabres have, you could maybe create a little second power play unit where you have Chalet and frickin' Kulik playing catch. I mean, that would be a beautiful thing. All right, so now let's go to Arizona. So Arizona, this is the pick that you got from Ottawa. You could have the idea that, we could do whatever we want with this, and it's free chicken. Like, no. You got to look at this like this is what you traded away your franchise defenseman to get this pick, or vice versa. So maybe you could say you kind of owe it to the fans that if Arizona does something weird and funky here with the pick, that you don't want to do that, because it'll make the pick unpopular, and at the same time it'll also put more pressure on the kid. And these things do happen. Like, it's not like football where they're guaranteed to get a lot of money because they're a 1st-round pick. In hockey, like, these kids, they get really crushed by what people say about them after getting drafted. Always a boss or whatever. So I think that there's going to be a defenseman taken in the top 10, right? If David Reinbacher is not there, does not go in the top 10, and he is there at 12, I think it would be a good pick to take a guy like David Reinbacher as a, replacement, quote unquote, for Jacob Chikrin. All right. I know you have Moser and you have Lamoureux. It's fine. And Lamoureux is a righty, and so is Reinbacher. But Reinbacher really is the real deal. In the event that Reinbacher is not there, then you go with Sandin Pellikka, the Swedish kid, because he, looking at the pool, looking at everything that Arizona has, actually have the prospect depth chart right here. So looking at your right side, you got Soderstrom, Lamoureux, Crotty, and then you got rid of Timmins and Sarayovi, right? I think Timmins was, you might have Timmins, but Sarayovi, I think, was in he went to the Rangers, I think, in like a 3-way trade. The left side of your defense is loaded, though. You have Duda, you have Langlois, you have Zuber, you have Kolyachinook. It's not loaded like in terms of talent, but all those forwards you have accumulating, right? The Gunthers and the Coolies. You need a power play quarterback, a power play specialist. Michelli. So I think Sandin Pellikka, all right. So I think they go defense, because again, if you draft a center right now at 12, it's going to be a little bit of a logjam. You can make the excuse like we had to take Bedard or Fantilli. We've drafted 1 or 2, but now that you're not going to be drafting any of those players, you can maybe go for it. And again, this is not a need pick. I don't want to say it's a need pick per se. It's more like it just makes sense because these defensemen have high point producing potential, and you don't want to start going too deep into the draft to worry about defensemen. You know, you want to start snatching the best ones up early because Arizona has an extra first round pick. Then, you know, you can take care of that. All right. This is a big pick. All right. It's for the Vancouver Canucks. They had Lekkerimäki last year. I think that there's not going to be a let's say, an over-analysis of this pick. I think that they want to have a player who could step right in. I'm sorry, not step right in, who, when he does step right in, will be more on the exciting side, but also good defensively as well. That's the key. That if you got Tocchet as the head coach right now, the prospect pool in Vancouver is barren. They have nothing. You basically have your young core, and then you have maybe Klimovich, and then you want to throw Hoglander, put Colson in there, and then Lekkerimäki. But other than that, you got a lot of ash and trash. Guys that were drafted from other teams, and they let them go. They didn't sign them. Amon, the other kid, the defenseman, Johansson. You have Linus Karlsson, who's actually not that bad. But for me, right now, like everything that the Canucks, I think, should be about, even though Tocchet is a defensive coach, you still need players who could skate. So you need players, specifically forwards, who could skate, and they can handle the puck, and they could also help you on the defensive end and kill penalties. And that's why I think Oliver Moore from the NTDP will go to the Canucks at number 11. The Canucks have drafted NTDP kids before. They've had good luck with it. You know, you already have Quinn Hughes there. He was part of that program. Lockwood, I mean, he's not there anymore, but you go down the list. The Canucks have drafted. Now, of course, those were jet bracket picks. But I still think that a guy like Moore, if you don't know about Oliver Moore, try your best. I mean, I'm going to write all about all these kids. And I've written about Moore in several posts that I made. Moore would have been the number one center on the NTDP pretty much in any other year, except for the ones that had, you know, Jack Hughes, Austin Matthews, and Jack Eichel. That, you know, like with Keller there, all right, it's tough because Keller did play center in the NTDP. But I think that Moore, it was vastly underrated in the beginning of the season. I had him in my first round. I think I had him in like in the 20s or 22. But it seemed like public rankings, they had him in the 40s. I'm like, ooh, good luck with that. This kid's really good. And then when Central Scouting came out with their watch list, they gave him a B. I'm like, I said, I don't agree. I don't agree with that. He's a first round prospect. Let give him his due. Actually, I don't want to be incorrect. Anyway, well, it was either a B or an A, but I'm pretty sure it was a B. And then when the midterms came out, he was a top 10 prospect. So a huge jump. But, you know, when you have all that skill in Vancouver, again, he could play defense, he could skate, he could kill penalties, take faceoffs, a lot of excitement, and he could be a playmaker as well. He's definitely more of a finisher than a playmaker. He's not like, you know, Will Smith is. So maybe if you have a guy like Lekkerimäki, you want to pair him with a pure setup man, and you might say, well, what about Braden Yeager in that spot? What about, you know, what about the Zach Benson? That's fine, but I don't think those guys will be around. That's why I sent them to you guys. All right, 10 St. Louis. Now, I already said that either Sandin Pellikka or Reinbacher is going to go to Arizona. Whichever one doesn't go to Arizona is going to go to St. Louis. So I guess I'm doing it backwards, so we'll know. But so if I got Sandin Pellikka going to Arizona at 12, the reason why is because Reinbacher is going to be off the board and he's going to go to St. Louis at 10. So let me just write these down. All right. So Reinbacher with St. Louis would be an automatic fit. Now, the one thing that you might say if you're a Blues fan is, why the hell are we taking this guy when we need centers? I understand you need centers. I'm completely aware of that. That Neighbors was a wing. Bolduc is a natural setter, but he's been playing wing the last 2 years. And then now you have Snuggerud, who's also been playing wing. So 3 straight wings who are first-round picks all fit that same mold in a way, like 6 foot, 6'1". They could be physical. Neighbors, obviously, more than anybody else. And they could all freaking wire the puck. You know, Simon Robinson is another one who can wire the puck, and he's going to be a pretty good player as well. So, you know, this is definitely a need pick. This is not BPA. You might say that I'm nuts because you're going to pass up on all those forwards, but remember that the Blues have 3 first-round picks. So you have 3 first-round picks. You could do whatever you want with this, And because you definitely need defensemen, and that Ryan Bacher is the best one in the draft, that you should definitely, right off the bat, he's going to be in Springfield. And, that Blues defense, they might be getting old and they might be experienced, but they're also locked up. So when those guys get hurt, you can't trade them. So you're going to have to bring guys up. I know they have Tyler Tucker and Matt Kessel, Sam Arukov. It's a physical Leo Loof. He just got signed. So I get it. You're like, wait, we just have all these defensemen. Those defensemen are 3-4 years older than this kid. So you have to think about that. When those kids hit UFA, this guy will still be an RFA. When these kids come out of the ELCs, this guy will probably be down on the farm. And so, a guy like Armstrong, I think he loves defensemen. They haven't used a first-round pick on a defenseman in a very long time. But again, they have 2 first-round picks additionally after this. So I think they go with the defenseman and take Ryan Bacher. All right, Detroit. I want to say Ryan Leonard here because I think you guys would love him, but he's going to be gone. So I think you right now with this pick, you're going to get Braden Yeager. Now, Braden Yeager, there's like post Brian Murray, Yzerman, like I become a defensive player now in him. Like in terms of Steve Yzerman. Now, I'm not, again, I know that I saw that Bedard's compared to Steve Yzerman. I think Craig Button did that. But Yeager, to me, when you see a player for the first time, and he's nothing but pure offense, and, you see like a good effort, he could skate, decent size, but a thick frame, doesn't get knocked off the puck very easily. And he just has that cannon of a shot, right? That beautiful wrist shot. It's heavy. It's accurate. And then he's a year older, and then he switches his game up, and now he's a playmaker. Now he's using his vision, and he's showcasing his stick handling more, and he's better defensively, where you see him crashing into puck carriers. Not necessarily looking for a big hit to be irresponsible, but I think that you might say, well, wait a minute, he's just like another freaking Casper. We got that already. Again, I'm telling you, these are the types of centers you want. Look at the centers that the Red Wings had when they were great, okay? Like, you need a Zetterberg type. And I could see a guy like Yeager becoming that. He's going to obviously add some muscle. If you're into the Swedish thing, you're like, no, what about, Stenberg? I got Stenberg ranked pretty high, but I think it would be a little bit of a reach. Actually, no, where do I have Stenberg? I have Stenberg at 19. I dropped him a little bit, but, Red Wings at 9. If there are guys, again, I'm trying to look at it like, certain people are off the board and, you only have so many options because you don't want to start experimenting with guys that are ranked, let's say, in the 20s. So I really do think that Yeager, even though I might say, well, he's in the 20s in a lot of these rankings. No, listen, he's a great player. He's a very good player. He was I think he was the player taken after, was it Benson or Yeager was the players taken after Bedard in their Bantam draft. I mean, a strong reputation. All right, Washington Capitals. So you had a really good draft last year. I love that draft last year. You got Chesley on defense. You got Suzdalev, who was fantastic this year. Not just because he played with Bedard in Regina. He was great. Ludwig Persson and Marashchenko. Marashchenko's coming over. This is what you guys needed. And I was happy for you because all those years, and not that the Caps were really negligent towards the draft. They always kept their first round picks, and they usually drafted a defenseman or some guy from out of the WHL. But that draft, not too far removed from the LaPierre draft, and LaPierre had a good second half this year with Hershey. McMichael had a very good year this year with Hershey, and Hershey, I think, is playing. They're playing Hartford right now in the AHL playoffs. That they haven't been negligent, but they've been trading away a lot of picks, and they need help. They've relied on their veterans for a very long time. Look at Kuznetsov. The freaking guy did it again. He did it again. He went out. He had a shit year. He had a shit postseason. He's like, I need to be better. Okay, but he comes out, he's better, and then he comes right back this season. He stinks. So, and then the coach dimed him out. The coach during the press conference dimed him out and said, he could have been better. He was not good. Imagine that. Imagine playing an entire season or almost an entire season where you thought you worked hard, and the coach is like, no, you didn't work hard. You didn't work hard. So, so knowing what we know, right? That now you're at 8. So this is what we have to think about now that we're into the first 8 picks. We know Bedard's going to be gone. We know the big 4 is going to be gone, right? Michkov's going to be gone. If he slips down because of the KHL contract, you know you're taking him. There's just no way that you're not taking him if Michkov I'm talking about. But there's really, I think, this group, this top 8 is going to be locked up. There's going to be, obviously, like, when I say locked up, I mean the names, not necessarily where they go. But obviously, you have Bedard. You have Fantilli, right? You have Michkov. You have Carlson. You have Smith, Benson, Dvorsky, and Leonard. All right, so there's your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's your 8. All right. I have one guy in there that I have him at 8, and I like him a lot. He just seems like a really funny dude. Just he's really freaking good. Is Colby Barlow, and I've done podcasts about Colby Barlow. I've written a lot of summaries about Colby Barlow, but that is my 8, right? I don't know, like I came up with it. Leonard right now, I had Leonard ranked at 17 on my March list, right? So March was 2 months ago. It was I had him 26, I think, in my preseason in June or May of 2022. So I gave him a bump by about a good 10 spots. Now, I don't really see anybody else. I already mentioned some of the names who might sneak into the top 10. I talked about Ryan Baca. I talked about the Sandy Palika. We talked about Chalet. Some of the Matthew Wood, I know he's ranked pretty high in some places, but maybe teams might get turned off a little bit by the skating. And again, I don't have a problem with it. But I'm the thing about him is, Central Scouting loves him, but the games I watched, might have been bad, just a coincidence. He wasn't really that good. I mean, he was kind of forcing things and taking shots, too many shots that were hitting dudes in the skates. So, that 8, I remember the Caps fans right now, like, all right, dude, shut up. Tell me the pick. So based on what we just did is create that top 8 that will not be touched. All right. And that Colby Barlow is probably going to go somewhere like 17 or 18, maybe. I don't think the Capitals are going to draft Colby Barlow. I think that Zach Benson is going to be the guy the Caps go for here. All right. So there you go. So again, remember, I'm going backwards now. So you say, well, what about the other guys? I think that, again, we're going backwards. So he's going to be the guy there. The reason why I think Benson's going to slip, I have him at 5. He's been a top, let's say, 7, 8 prospect all season. The reason why I think Benson slips is there's 2 reasons. Well, maybe 3. His size, okay? So, out of all the people remaining in the 8, he's the smallest at 5'9". All right, but he's physical. But that ties into my number 2. My number 2 reason is that he had a really bad shoulder surgery that knocked him out for about, I want to say it was like a month and a half, maybe almost 2 months. He plays with reckless abandon. He is insanely skilled. He's a joy to watch. I love the kid. He hits. He's really, really feisty. But when you play that way, and you're also a top-line finesse guy, and you're only 5'9", you run the risk of guys taking runs at you, and that's exactly what happened when they played the Edmonton Oil Kings. They were at home, and they played the Edmonton Oil Kings, and he got drilled. It was a dirty hit, and it knocked him out for 2 months. But all that said, if you're watching the WHL playoffs now, and we all know the Caps love the WHL, right? Iorio and just go down the list of all the WHL players that the Capitals have taken in the past, that they're watching what Benson is doing in the playoffs, which is exactly what he did for Winnipeg, one of the best teams in the CHL, if not the best in the CHL. And if they play Seattle, it's going to be a freaking war. But Benson, in my opinion, has been the best player wire to wire on that team outside of the time that he missed because of injury. And think about who's on that team. That's including Matt Savoy, who's also been fantastic, and Connor Geeky, and some really good overage, Connor McLennan, the ex-Flyer draft pick. But in my opinion, I watch games at the beginning of the year where I'm like, what the frick is Savoy doing? What's frickin' Geeky doing? And then Benson would save the day. He was like the maestro. Remember the Seinfeld episode Maestro with the frickin' guy with the it was like this. He was the father in One Crazy Summer, and the Army ROTC guy in Animal House. A pledge pin on your uniform. Remember that? Anyway, the maestro. Well, Zach Benson's the maestro. And with the puck, he controlled everything. He was scoring all the big goals. You know how, like, if you watch team in the playoffs and you're like, oh, my team sucks. Where are my big guns? Why are they not producing? Well, he's been the guy that when his team is like that, he takes care of business. So the shoulder's healed. And I think that the WHL connection, I know that you said we just loaded up on 3 freaking wings. Why are we taking another wing? We need centers. I get it. But remember, you don't want to pass up an opportunity like this. And the Caps have, I think they have 2/3. So, anyway. All right, so now we're down to our bottom 7. And the Flyers are up. And I'm going to keep it a secret because I'm going to reveal it on the OB podcast tomorrow with Isaiah. That, you know, I don't want to just, it's going to be, well, that's not tomorrow, it's the 10th. And I'm going to tweet out the link and everything like that. But Flyers, I won't tell you what pick I'm going to give them, but because if I tell you the pick now, I'm going to have to talk about it on the show, and I don't want to do that. So, like, you know, I'd rather reveal it on the show. We talk about it on the show. But here's the thing with the Flyers. This is going to be automatically the best prospect in your pool, better than Gauthier. Gauthier is a potential franchise center, and we all love kind of Gauthier. But we're talking about a potential that it could be a Dalibor Dvorsky, right? And what Dvorsky's did in his draft -2, draft -1, it's basically better than what Gauthier did during his draft -2, draft -1. You have a chance of it being a Ryan Leonard. Like, for all the wings that the Flyers have, you don't have anybody like Ryan Leonard. You got a couple who want to play like him, but the way he shoots, the way he creates his own shot, the way he hits, the skating, the aggressive forecheck, clutch, you know, so he's a guy. And then, you know, Will Smith, you have that set, you know, a nice 1-2 punch, the NTDP combo with Gauthier and Smith as your top 2 centers in the future. So, again, you know, it's going to be one of those guys, I think. If Will Smith goes 3, then guys are going to slip. Now, you could say, well, what about Leo Colson if he slips? Take him. What about Matvei Michkov if he slips? We had bad luck in Russia. Look at the poor goalie Fedotov, and they drugged him, and he couldn't come over after we signed him. Listen, I wouldn't worry about it. Now, you know, the Flyers have not been drafting many Russians lately. I've noticed that. Maybe they're, you know, hurt from Rubtsov. I mean, who knows? And with all the picks the Flyers have had, you'd think that they would dip into that pool again, but they really haven't. So maybe that there is a little bit of apprehension there with Philadelphia in terms of Michkov. So if that's the case, then maybe they do go for, let's say, a guy like a Zach Benson or maybe even a Jaeger. Maybe they think Jaeger reminds them of Braden Shen. There's, you know, my view of the Flyers right now, generally speaking, is that they needed a culture change. That the Torts was hired like 2 years too late. That they should have fired Vigneault right after they got blown out by the Rangers 8-2, and then they bring in Torts, and I think he salvages the season. I'm not saying that he automatically makes, Couturier healthy and etc. But I think if Torts is there, he would have righted the ship a little bit in the 2020-21 season, where you don't have to make those moves at the deadline, right? Because those moves out of desperation. You know, you go out and you get Ristolainen, you go out and you get, what's his nuts? Ryan Ellis. So, you know, I think that there's something there that Torts has definitely restored credibility. And the Flyers were a really tough team to play against this year, but they're going to need like elite bodies, right? They need to, like, Flyers were always known for having 2-3 scoring lines. You know what I mean? Not too long ago. Like the team that beat Pittsburgh in 2012. I mean, you know, they were violent and they were skilled and they were fun. And so I think, you know, if Torts wants to get back to that, you know, you want to find a guy like, you know, and the thing is, Dvorsky could play like that. Leonard could play like that. You know, Danielson could play like that. Then a lot of options, a lot of options. All right, so now we're at number 6 in Arizona. This is technically your first pick, but we already gave you one, and you drafted Standing Palika. So you're definitely going to go forward here. And I think that Matvey Michkov is going to fall all the way down to 7. I wouldn't have thought that if Chicago was 3rd. I'm still like, I was convinced that Chicago was going to take him at 3. But I think that you're probably looking at Ryan Leonard here and Will Smith. But then again, you went double center last year. And although you have Gunther and you have Michelli and you have Keller, that, remember, you're trying to create a hype machine, right? You're trying to create buzz. And sometimes winning isn't enough. That drafting Michkov to Arizonans, to Coyotes fans, it's almost like, listen, we didn't get Bedard, we should have, but no, now let's do it. Now let's get really the next best thing, in my opinion. And listen, it's a fair argument. It's a fair argument to say, or to ask, what would have Michkov done in the WHL if he, instead of playing in the KHL? Because look at what he did in the KHL. So it's fair to say that, wait a minute, Michkov outscored Bedard 2 times they played head-to-head. They were the same age. Michkov had like 8 months on him, but that's kind of meaningless. So you could say it's kind of even. They both destroyed their junior leagues production-wise, using NHLE, whatever you want to use. That, Michkov's draft -1 with Sky 1946 and Bedard's -1 with Regina, very similar, very, very similar. But the separation was this year. It was this year because not just because of the Russian factor and because there was a Ukraine war. It was because Michkov first he had a knee injury in camp or preseason against that dirtbag Yemelin, and he missed time. So while he's sitting out and missing time, this is like August, September timeframe, but Bedard starts his WA season and he's having 4 goals a game. And so, Michkov doesn't really turn it back on again until he hits the VHL. But people are like, oh, well, the narrative was he didn't make it in the KHL. That's a ding on him. Like, dude, it's the friggin' KHL. But in the second half, what was more impressive? Bedard hitting 70 and 70, or Michkov being the highest, U19 or U18 scorer in KHL history, albeit within a very small sample. And that sample began when he went to the Sochi team. So, to me, Arizona makes sense. It's like you want to create a buzz. The arena is always going to be packed. You never have to worry about that because how small it is. But if you miss out on Bedard and Matthews signs an extension with, let's say, with Toronto, that you could market Keller, whatever, but Michkov, if he has a 40-goal rookie season like Ovechkin did, I mean, there you go. There you have it. And you've never had a player like that. You've never had a player. You had Roenick play there and Kachuk play there, and yeah, big names, but you've never had a player like a Michkov. And again, I saw Clayton Keller play at the NTDP when he was, it was both years. He made a lot of fancy plays, and he still makes fancy plays, but he wasn't bringing people out of their seats like Michkov does. So, and now Logan Cooley has that potential as well, but again, he's a center iceman. He might be the face of the franchise. He might not be. But Michkov with the lacrosse goals, the pizzazz, the wow, to me, it just makes way too much sense. All right, so now we're on the Habs. Don't take offense to this, okay? I'm not making fun of you guys. But I've been covering the draft now for 8 years. And I've never seen a fan base, not Toronto, not Vancouver, judgmental, cynical about. I'm just talking about the draft itself, and I guess and angry at people who disagree with them. Listen, this is a fan base that's very passionate, and I love Montreal, I really do. And I think they're unique. I think the fan base is unique. I think the city's unique. The culture's unique. Everything. But the Dvorsky discourse. Now I don't know how it started. I have no idea how Dvorsky was basically adopted as the next Montreal Canadian automatically, well before the lottery, well before the draft. And I understand that, okay, Slavkovsky is Slovakian. He needs a friend. He might be down in his down in the dumps. He needs morale. He and Dvorsky. Oh, what if they don't like each other? What if they like freaking hate each other? Like, oh, great, I got to be with this freaking loser again. But anyway, I'm going to give you guys Dvorsky. I'm going to give you guys Dvorsky. And, it makes sense. He's been phenomenal. If you read my scouting report on him on the Substack, that it was a weird scenario what happened to him. Forget about the stats and what he did in tournaments and what he did in the J20 level. That's too easy. What happened to him in the Allsvenskan against men was a very odd development, because in the beginning of the season, when I was really watching him like a hawk, this was like late October into November, into December, I was watching his Allsvenskan play. And I'm like, dude, he's playing with their best players. Was it Muzito Bagenda, right? And Yinya. Was Yinya on that team? It's Gingy. Was Gingy or Yinya, something like that. And I think Zion Niebeck was on that team as well. The guy that was a little guy, but a big-time producer, point producer in the J20 with I think Carolina took Zion Niebeck. But so my mind was made up on Dvorsky. I'm like, I don't even see him anymore. Yeah, I'll watch him and whatever, but I'm that kind of guy. I know you might think it's wrong, but I've been right on a lot of times feeling that way about kids, like writing an assessment about them based on maybe 3 or 4 viewings, and then that's exactly what they become. And 3 or 4 viewings, I mean, that's 3 or 4 viewings. It could be spaced out over the course of a season. It could be in like a 2 or 3 week time frame. So the point I'm making is that I thought I saw enough at Dvorsky. I'm like, oh, he's very good. And we knew he was good. Like I said, he was my preseason 6 or 5. So I love Dvorsky, but when you see him playing against men and the coach is like, yeah, hey, 17-year-old, you're my number 1 center. I'm like, all right, there's a reason why. Let's try to find out. And then you see the defensive play, and then you see his vision. And the weird development happened when he came back from the World Juniors. And for whatever reason, because I didn't watch the games, he wasn't there. Ike and his team, they played well and they established lines, and then they played Dvorsky, right? And he's like, okay, I'm back. So it's almost like the starting quarterback getting hurt, and he's healthy now. He's like, hey, I want my job back. And the coach is like, nope, we've been winning. You're the backup. All right. And plenty of examples, with that happening in football history. Well, really any team sport, like the 4 major ones, at least the ones that matter. But so Dvorsky's like, all right, yeah, all right, I'll play. It's my draft year. I'm sure he has an agent. I'm sure he told his agent, said, what's the deal, yo? Freaking come back here. I had a great World Junior. Guy gave my freaking job to somebody else. They're like, hey, these are the breaks. Just, you don't want to be a crybaby about it. So he wasn't a crybaby about it, and he played really well. The thing is, he wasn't producing. He wasn't putting up points. But why? He went from the first line to the freaking 3rd and 4th line. But I dug deeper into it, and I saw that he was, in fact, producing, just not in bunches like he was, let's say, at the J20 level, or, like in a 5 to 7 game sample when he was, early in the season with the adult age team. So then he goes to then the J20 playoffs start, and Ike is like, go ahead and play in the J20 playoffs. And again, we're talking about Montreal's pick. So this is going to be a little bit about Montreal's future play, Dalbo Dvorsky. What else is there? That's all they've been talking about. But so Dvorsky they sent him down to the J20, and I guess the justification was like twofold. We want our junior team to win, and he could have his top line job back. Like we need him to play. He's not playing a lot with us. Well, no shit. You took him. You punished him. We didn't do anything wrong. So he goes down there and he's having like 2 points a game. 2 points a game. They win the play-in round. I think 2 games to none or 2 games to 1. And And then so from the time that he finishes, I believe his last, while he's in the, I could be mistaken, but I wrote all about it. It's on the Substack. He basically played 5 games in 5 nights with different teams. So he went from like the J20 and the Allsvenskan back and forth for 5 straight days. He literally played, and then so now you got to air on the days off the other games involved. So it's like, it's like 10 games in like 14 nights or something like that. And so naturally, when you are playing top line minutes one night, and you have to travel, well, I don't know how much you travel, but then you have to go and play in the Allsvenskan playoffs, and the coach is like, yeah, like you could barely stand up, dude. Like you think about the travel that you. And I'm like, what did he do to deserve this? And so, conspiracy theories say, well, maybe he was mean, maybe he like broke a rule, and the coach is punishing him. That's one hell of a fucked up punishment to keep doing that to a kid over like a 4-month period or 3-month. Because we're talking about like early to mid-January, well into March. And when I saw that, I'm like, all right, well, I got to dig into this. I got to watch these games and see what the fuck's going on. And so I'm watching. I'm like, he's playing a minute and a half a game, but he's playing his ass off. So that was Dalibor Dvorsky's league season in a nutshell. Again, there's really no explanation that you could extract from film or the raw data. If there's stuff going on behind the scenes, I don't give a shit. I saw him play. Okay, if he's got an attitude problem, fuck it, let him have an attitude problem. Okay, all I care about is what he does on the ice. And there's been no reports that he's been a cancer or he's bad, so you can't even speculate that. Like it's basically, it probably is what it is, right? It's like if it walks like a duck, it's basically he went to the World Juniors. His team was winning. They got into a groove. They liked the lineups, and they said, "Hey, you have to stay in a depth role." And he was like, "Okay." And then they're like, "Hey, we need you here. We want you to play." For all we know, he could have volunteered for all that stuff. I mean, talk about a high mark. I mean, teams are going to eat that up. So anyway, to wrap this all up, then he goes to the U18 Worlds and completely annihilates it. He completely annihilates it in all 3 zones. So that's where you're starting to hear like, all right, he might go top 3. Well, unfortunately, you can't say that because Will Smith was pretty much doing the same thing at the same tournament. They chose to elevate Will Smith. They chose, I think, Dvorsky. I didn't see the any rankings that came out of the U18s, but again, Canadians fans, you wanted Dvorsky, you begged for Dvorsky, you're asking for Dvorsky, you're obsessed with Dvorsky. You're gonna freaking get Dvorsky, okay? When it's time for you to pick at 5, and again, this is not based off of like inside information or fuck that shit. No, okay, straight up and down. All right, at a minimum, you're getting the best player available at that spot who happens to be Slovakian and could help out your number 1 pick from a year ago. So that right off the bat is justification, okay? I mean, there's nothing he's done or hasn't done where you would say, I don't think it's a good pick at that spot. No, it's a good pick at that spot. It really is. If you pass on, let's say Will Smith, or you pass on Ryan Leonard, look at your prospect pool of the freaking guys you got. So Dvorsky it is. There's a lot of competition though on that team at the center ice position. I know Riley Kidney just got eliminated, but the Oliver Kapanen is one, and then you still have guys on the contract at the NHL level. Suzuki and who am I forgetting? Hold on. I just wrote about the Canadiens. This shows what happens when you get old. You just lose your mind. You forget everything. Hold on. All right, Montreal. Your top 5 prospects, I got Slafkovsky, Hudson, Farrell, Beck. That's the guy I was thinking of. So Beck, Salmonen. No, I'm sorry, Kapanen with the Sakus. Or Samu. No, it's Oliver Kapanen. I'm sorry. I don't know. You see again. So you have Kapanen, Riley Kidney, Beck, and now you're going to add Dvorsky. But again, create competition. Everything is fine. All right, so now let's move on to the San Jose Sharks at number 4. Mitch Corver's off the board. You know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to say Ryan Leonard goes to Philly. There you go. I said it. I'm so stupid. Because process of elimination, you would have figured out anyway. All right, so Leonard to Philly at 7. I'll talk about it tomorrow with Isaiah or on the 10th. Mitch Korb to Arizona at 6. Dvorsky to the Habs at 5. So that leaves us with the big 3, right? And Will Smith. So Bob McKenzie's rankings come out. They're a hasty ranking. I don't think he polled his entire network of scouts. I think he only polled a couple of people. I don't like the whole idea behind that, but I understand why people like it. But he had Will Smith ahead of Carlson. Now, what would compel someone to rank someone over somebody else when they were behind them the previous 12, 15, 18 months? What happened in that 30-day period if you're doing a monthly ranking? Like, what happened? The U18 Worlds happened. That's what happened. That I said almost said Leo Smith. Leo Carlson had a very good post, had an excellent year for Rebro in the SHL. Excellent. Tailed off a little bit at the end. A lot of his points in the power play. Then he really picked it back up at the end of the regular season. And that line, they made a kid line in the playoffs. So he played with the 03 overager who hits everything. Milton Oscarson. And they played together and they were scoring big goals, but Rebro had issues scoring goals, period. I think that was Shalefty, or was it Rogler? That series I haven't watched. I watched his first round series. He was phenomenal. Carlson, that is I'm talking about. But he's a late birthday. He played in this tournament last year. He played the other Helenka. Like, he's played above his level. Like, this is what happens with late birthdays. But he's not playing. He's probably training with Team Sweden's men's national team for the Worlds. And while this is going on, Smith is doing dipsy doodles around everybody and has a freaking 20-point in 7-game tournament or whatever it was. So makes sense, right? Makes sense that you would rank Will Smith ahead of Carlson because of that one tournament. Now it's within everybody's right. I just freaking hate when they do that. Because what is Will Smith? Now, Will Smith did very well against college teams, but what's Will Smith doing in the SHL? And are we going to talk about the fact that Will Smith was not very good in the gold medal game? If we're talking about, let's say, the Senior Bowl, we're talking about the Orange Bowl in college football, or the Rose Bowl, and the top quarterback prospect goes to the Rose Bowl and doesn't have a good game. He throws a touchdown, maybe he runs for a couple of first downs, but he does not have a good game decision-making wise. Now, I know you say, well, hockey's a little different because in a tournament, the games are packed in and these kids are exhausted. They're jet lagged. I get it. All right, I'll buy it. But what about the kids who aren't making mistakes? What about the kids who are not making selfish plays? And I ain't lying, man. Like, go back and watch the tape. And I love Will Smith. Again, hard worker. He's a Boston area kid. He's a funny kid. I wish him the best. But listen, when you sign your name on that contract, this is what comes along with it, okay? We watch you. We have to talk about you. Will Smith was not very good in that game. He tried to do everything himself. Ryan Leonard was the guy that made the difference at the end, not Will Smith. And again, I'm not saying that Ryan Leonard is better than Will Smith, but if you watched his decisions, especially in analysis, they rallied back. They were down 2-0. They were going nowhere. Smith had a responsibility as the number one center to create offense. He tried. And he had an assist, broken play that got to Eisenman on the other across the seam, and he whistled it home to make it 2-1. But Leonard is the guy that really, really made everything happen. And so you got to say, like, all right, this is the biggest game of the kid's life because we all know the NTDP and all the chokes and everything. So how could you watch Carlson in the playoffs, then watch Smith at this tournament, but with the caveat that he had a really bad gold medal game and still come away with the fact that I'm going to switch people around? I don't like that. Think about how much work goes into a year's worth of watching these kids. Like stacks and stacks and stacks of notes. All right, you do digital files and folders and folders and folders of files. Where you're like, all right, I've seen enough. And the sad thing about the U18s is a lot of GMs, a lot of scouting directors and scouts, they go there and they change their minds completely. Sometimes it works in your favor, right? Like a Miro Heiskanen, and sometimes you get your Jesse Puljujarvis and you get your Tyson Josts and you get Sperry Kotkaniemi. Not that those guys are bad players, but think about who they were drafted ahead of. Well, Heiskanen, I'm sorry, take Heiskanen off that list. Heiskanen had a great tournament, but the guys that didn't were the Puljujarvis and I'm sorry, I'm tired. But yeah, I think you guys understand what I'm trying to say. That, it's okay if you see a guy that's low on your list and you're like, he didn't have a good year. And then he has, and like, oh, you know what? There's something there. Let me dig into it. He might have something. But the top kids, no, you don't change the top kids. You don't change the top kids because of what they do in one tournament. That they've played these tournaments before. They've played against a tough competition. So I will always disagree with that. I'll always be, kind of like pissed about it. But, when, the Sharks have to make a pick at this position, that you have to understand, like, where they're at. Like, so all they have right now, all we have are 4 centers. And so the Sharks have to find a way to find like a dynamic, exciting type of guy. Well, thing is though, think about who the Sharks drafted last year in Gria's first year as GM. That what's Gria trying to do? What was Gria like as a player? Gria was a mean, tough SOB. He's also comes from an insanely credible scouting background, not just his, but his brother and his father. Like imagine like, hey, here's my family. We're all GMs, or like assistant GMs or directors of player personnel. So when Gria traded down and took Beasted, I'm like, and then with the additional picks got Cam Lund. I'm like, all right, he's trying to build its culture. He's trying to build a hard ass, tough nose, hard nose, dog in a bone type mentality, right? Like where when we show up, we're going to be the Boston Bruins. And again, that was the kind of play that Gria was. And his BU teams with Jack Parker and Chris Drury, that's how they played. So Smith is very tenacious, right? He's very tenacious. And I wouldn't even worry about the size. Leo Carlson is tenacious in a different way. But they both have the same amount of skill, in my opinion. The skill is both equal. But Carlson gives you a wrinkle with the size and the reach that Smith doesn't have. And he's also not a selfish player. That there is so much, the deception in his game, in both their games, is off the charts, high IQ. But Carlson does a lot of things from a standstill that you can't teach. Smith is always go 1,000 miles an hour, but he goes in different directions and he's patient. But I guess the level of deception in Carlson's game when he's on the puck, because people see a big guy, they try to attack him, he sidesteps them. They try to lunge for it, he'll like flip it past them or through their legs. So again, based on identity, if Mike Gria is watching that tournament and he's watching Will Smith throughout the year, there was a lot of selfishness on the part of all those guys, although they're line mates, they can do whatever they want. I think he likes the fact that Carlson might be only a year away, if that. Whereas Smith is going to probably go to college for 1 year. So the Sharks at 4 are going to take Leo Carlson. Now, again, you might say, well, see, how can we play this game? Because it's based on what Columbus does. I think Columbus will take Will Smith because he is dynamic and fast, and like he would automatically be the best pure playmaker. Now, you have a lot of offense there with Sillinger and all of those defensemen, but Smith would be their Barzal, right? And think about that 1-2 punch where you would have Voronkov maybe down the middle at one spot and what's his name? Voronkov and then Smith. So let me just look at. All right, so here's what you got at center ice. You got I mean, not much. You got McCown, Turcoff, Pudio, Boyd, Angle, and then Dunn. The two big guys you got, Delbel, Belouz, but, you know, Sarnia this year, he was a little bit of a passenger, just like he was with Mississauga last year. And then Voronkov, who I love. So you basically need Will Smith. Now, I don't know what the plan is, again, for Sillinger, etc. You graduate a lot of guys. But, you know, you might say, well, we're thin at wing. You can address that later on, man. You got a billion picks. You got a lot of picks. So Will Smith does go third overall. Again, it's a mock draft, not a ranking. And I know Columbus right now is like, how the hell do we go from Bedard to Smith? Think about that for a second. Think about who you got at third overall. That you might have gotten Clayton Keller or maybe even Jack Hughes. So that leaves only two. And picking two is Anaheim. And you drafted Adam Fantilli. And listen, it's just a nice problem to have. Fantilli is a great kid. I don't know what he's like off the ice. I don't care if he's cocky. I don't whatever. He must really love the game. And I don't say that about a lot of kids because you might think, oh, well, they all love the game. Like the way, the things that he hustles for and how he gets there before anybody else stands out to me more than almost anything else. The shot is fantastic. He's a dual threat. He can do whatever he wants. He makes brilliant passes. I mean, think about what he did this year. That he showed up and he was the best player on the best prospect team, and he got them all the way to the Frozen Four again. Well, not again, but he got them all the way to the Frozen Four. And he was their top line center. There was no like, well, this guy's this. No, he was their number one. He played with Brindley. The duo together. You got to talk about, you know, a kid who might skyrocket up and maybe even squeeze into the top 10 because is there that much of a difference between Brindley and Benson? I mean, maybe not. I don't think so. I'm still going to take Benson over him 10 times out of 10, but there's a similarity there. But, you know, Fantilli on Anaheim, I think, I mean, he's going to be playing on if you put him on a line with Mason McTavish, do you have any idea what that can do to an opponent? That two big, mean, physical forwards, they could swap in or out, right? So one gets kicked out of the dot, you put the other guy in. There's no like, oh, I don't know what it's like to play center. Now, some might think, well, no, don't you want like don't you want to match Fantilli with a pure shooter, a sniper? Yeah, sure. But think about what those lines are going to look like. Once you like move on from the likes of, let's say, you know, like, you know, Strome and Vetrano and, you know, we're talking about 5-7 years down the road. So, yeah, I'm a huge Fantilli fan. I understand. I guess I could say I made a mistake by thinking he was not worthy of being ranked ahead of Michkov. He certainly is. And so I apologize to the Hockey News for doing it, but it's just why the Hockey News did it. They did it before Fantilli didn't freaking prove anything. If you want me to believe that the Hockey News had some secret magic, a tidbit of info, and we're like, wait a minute, no, Fantilli didn't have a good U18 Worlds. And that's around the time they made their rankings. So it's like, it was obviously like the same magazine article that the publisher's like, I'm Ukrainian and the Russia's mean. And let's lower the Russian kids, by the way. Oh, just coincidence. No, it's not political. No, it's coincidence. That's why I got a little upset. But now that we're here on lottery day, I'll gladly say that if my team took Fantilli instead of Michkov, I'd be very ecstatic. If my team took Michkov over Fantilli, I'd be very ecstatic. That's how it works. So, you know, Yeah, if you're Anaheim, you want some of your guys that you want your Perreaults and you want your Colangelos and those guys to maybe start. Who's the other guy? Braden Tracy. Hey, these guys are first round picks. Show me something. But you're looking at a triangle, if you want to call it that, or a 5-man unit, at least on paper. And I'm not forgetting Jamie Drysdale, by the way. But whether it's Drysdale and Zellweger or Drysdale, Mintyukov, or Mintyukov and Drysdale. And then you got to throw in Lacombe too. Very good. Really surprised me in the NCAA run. But this is a menacing. I mean, you might have your answer to Kopitar, and I wrote that in my Ducks lottery primer that it's got to bother you what you're seeing in LA right now. That you guys started around the same time, and LA Kings were like, "How the frick did we end up with Turcotte and they got Zegras?" Well, dude, you've won 100 games back-to-back years or whatever, and you've been to the playoffs. Whereas Anaheim was the worst team in the league. So what happened? Where was the separation? Where did it begin? A lot of it, I think, has to do with coaching. A lot of it has to do with the sheer number of prospects the Kings had versus Anaheim they had high prospects, but not many of them, or not as many. Like, if Bo Gruhl was in the King system, he would have been waived. You know what I mean? And that's not a shot at him because I like him. It's just, it's just how insanely deep they were. So, if you're Pat Verbeek right now, and you're sitting with Martin Madden, I think Martin Madden is still the scouting director. You're like, dude, like, we can match up with Byfield now. I know, we have Zegras, we have McTavish, but now not only can we match up with them, one day we might overtake them. That when the Ducks finally, think about the big five, right? If I'm forgetting anybody, I apologize. Well, Gaucher, he's actually playing pretty well in the Quebec League playoffs with Quebec. But Zegras, McTavish, Drysdale, the two defensemen, right? Mintyukov and Zellweger, and then maybe add a six, so the big six. Add a Fantilli. The LA Kings can't compare to that. They have nothing, and I love the Kings system, but now on paper, they can't. It's up to now the players and the Ducks to build around them. Because the Kings, listen, Byfield, if he does become Malkin, you're in trouble. You got to counter that. How do you counter that? You counter that with a center like Fantilli. So, I was never really that excited about the future of the NHL when I first started doing this because I was leery that there used to be so many busts. So many busts. And whether they weren't afforded a chance to play, I mean, that's irrelevant. It's just that there were a lot of busts. And so I never really got attached to but these last couple of drafts, Alexei Lafreniere and Capo Caco notwithstanding, because they have something to prove still. And that's another story for another time. And I love them. I love a lot of prospects. I can't help it. But they have to step up. 40 points is nice. Let's start seeing some 30s and 60s. Just to kind of let's move on because you really are I pick and the plays picked behind you, even though they aren't on a contender or play third line minutes, they're starting to jump you. So you want to be motivated. If you're not going to find it, then ask for a trade. That's simple, and I have no problem with that either. So you look at all these prospects and go to all these teams there's going to be a major seismic shift in the balance of power. And this happens. This is cyclical. Go just get an NHL record book or go online, go to NHL records. This happens. You have and I think the easiest way for it to be depicted in front of you in terms of trends is just to go to Hockey Reference's franchise index. And when you see white space, that means they didn't make the playoffs. You could see the teams with big gaps. The teams that are just St. Louis and Boston and Detroit, where it's takes up half the page from all the playoff appearances. So we didn't know when it was going to happen, but it's happening now. And so if you're a Ducks fan, you're like, ugh, please, I can't. And like, it's almost like the Devils fans last year. Like, the Rangers are in the freaking conference final. Are you serious? Like, we started the rebuild the same time before them. And they made the conference finals, and we're still stuck here. Well, they got the last laugh in round one, but I think that's what Ducks fans should want. And they're going to need a coach to really facilitate that. A coach that makes them hungry. Not that Eakins didn't, but he was there 4 years, and they regressed every year, pretty much. So, there's going to be a time where Fantilli is going to play with McTavish, I think, and they will be on one of the most feared lines in the game. All right, so last but not least, we're at an hour and we're at 2 hours, actually, 125 minutes. We're talking about Chicago and Connor Bedard. I kind of already did, but obviously that's where he's going. Maybe one thing to look at is what Chicago is going to do with the rest of their assets, because now, I mean, listen, they're obviously not going to trade Bedard. But why do I keep losing this? All right, I guess I lost the Chicago. The one thing I needed to read was Chicago, and I lost it. Here we go. All right, so you've been regressing. And you went, again, defense heavy in the first round last year. Took 2 out of 3. So think about that for a second. That right now, undoubtedly, Chicago has the best prospect depth on defense. That the decision to go with 2 defensemen, right, albeit offensive-minded defensemen, in the first round last year is definitely part of a strategy. But they also have guys that they're already done with Rockford. I mean, they let Beaudin go. He was an first round pick. They let Beaudin go because he wasn't that good. But Vlasic, Wyatt Kaiser, I mean, these guys might be on the team next year full time. Vlasic, Isaac Phillips, and Kaiser, right? So those are established guys that every team would want. And then on the right side, you got Connor Kelly, underrated, Regula, Louis Crevier, and then additionally you have the Korchinski and Nolan Allen on the left side, the 2 recent first-round picks. Law of Averages says this is going to be one hell of a defense core. And I know that I mocked the Nolan Allen pick because it was like, what? What are you doing, Bowman? But you're watching Seattle play right now. They're about to go to the Memorial Cup, or at least the WHL final. And Allen's a mean dude. He's really tough to play against. So I could see it. I mean, you're just not going to get a lot of offense from him, but you accept it. So you have the wings, right? Hawks have plenty of wings. Maybe you're kicking yourself like, shit, do we have to really get rid of DeBrincat now? Do we have to get rid of Doc? Like, Doc is doing fine in Montreal. DeBrincat is doing fine in, he regressed a little bit in Ottawa, but still, he's DeBrincat. He'll rebound. But I don't think it matters. They had a really great draft last year. They drafted a lot of kids that, fit a whole bunch of descriptions. The one kid, who might play with Bedard one day? Gavin Hayes, a 3rd-round pick. You know what? They can make a line. Check this out. Hear me out. They can make a line with Bedard centering Savoie, the frickin' pest, maybe a future Brad Marchand, and Hayes on the other. Now, neither of those guys were high-round picks, and of course, they're in the same draft class, so you think it's an easy exercise. It's knee-jerk. But complementing styles, Hayes had a 40-goal year this year. Remember when people said, he's a product of Brennan Othman? Othman gets traded, Hayes hits 40 goals and 80 points. So, if the 1-2 punch is going to be, 1-2-3 punch is going to be Reichel, no order, like Reichel, Bedard, Nazer. And then you have Ilya Safanov, another good prospect who had a very good year this year in Russia, as your fourth line center. It never really works out that way, and they always go out and they get, veterans, but endless possibilities. Endless possibilities. I mean, I'm going to watch him play. I'm going to watch a Hawks game no matter what. And to have that peak period in the franchise's very long and rich history, and then to really suffer right at like to have that kind of a drop off. It happens, but with the scandals and everything involved, and you're saying goodbye to like everybody, like it's tough to swallow. And you get Bedard and listen, the hype around Pat Kane was similar. The hype nationwide wasn't the same because Americans know that, but like people know what Bedard is now. But when Patrick Kane was the first overall pick, and they found out that he was from Buffalo, like not too far away, and that, oh my God, look what he's doing in his first couple of games of the season, and oh look at that, we're in the goddamn conference finals. Or I think it was the conference finals, or the first round. Was it Vancouver or Detroit beat them? So, like, I think Chicagoans, Hawks fans, they're familiar with this. They know how to handle this. It's going to definitely be up to Bedard to live up to expectations. He's going to have to do some fancy shit in addition to putting up points. But, we knew it was possible. I just didn't think it would happen. I thought Columbus was due. But that's it. All right. That's it. Hour and 30, 2.5 hours. Oh, 2 hours and 10 minutes, I think, in the books. So I guess this gets archived. You can watch it, another time. It'll stay up there. I don't know. It'll be on the live section. I don't know. But thank you for tuning in. And that's it. All right. See you guys later.